This is a really scary story about a man who ruined Halloween.
Hello, dear subscribers. In this creepy story, I changed names, cities, and some points so as not to hurt anyone's feelings. So listen and write your opinion in the comments. Let's get to the story. Today is October 31st, which means that today is the Halloween holiday, when children dress up in superhero costumes, eat candy, have fun, and tell each other scary stories, most of which are made up. But today I would like to remember one story, which unfortunately is absolutely real. It happened on Halloween, October 31st, and forever left its black mark, making people remember it with horror until now. In fact, Halloween is a very ancient holiday that was celebrated by the ancient Celts. Starting in the 4th century BC, they put on the skins of animals, jumped around a huge bonfire, and hoped for the favor of the gods. Halloween for them was a holiday marking the end of the harvest and the impending harsh winter, as the Celts believed that it was on this day on Earth that dark forces, protection from which they wanted to get a man, were arranged, and those who did not honor these dark forces awaited severe punishment. So they celebrated it necessarily. But even today, there are people who believe that on the night from the 30th to the 31st of October, you need to be especially careful because the dark forces just come to Earth. And one day something dark really did happen. It happened in America, in the small town of Winthrop, Washington, in 1970. I'll start with a little history that eventually led to a scary thing. In Europe and North America, there has long been a tradition of celebrating Halloween called Sweet or Nasty, when children dressed up as monsters or superheroes go to their neighbors' houses and demand candy. The neighbors, in turn, must give the candy. Otherwise, the children will do something nasty in response. In 1970, the New York Times published an article that turned the holiday into a nightmarish mess that no one expected. Children should not eat Halloween candy they have collected unless it has been thoroughly inspected by their parents. In recent years, there has been an increase in cases where candy has been found with blades, razors, broken glass, needles, and even poison.
Sometimes on Halloween, children are given poisoned candy. Be careful, an old legend turned to reality.
People are suddenly starting to wonder why we didn't worry about this before. The world is full of crazy people who can put anything in candy, and then there was a real panic among people. After all the circumstances settled down, just 10 days later, an article appeared in the same newspaper about the death of a boy. A 5-year-old boy who ate Halloween candy died today without regaining consciousness. The candy got to him last Saturday while he was trick-or-treating. But the tragic thing is that the article turned out to be false. Fact, and a short time later, there was an expose that said that, in fact, the boy ate not the candy but a capsule with a banned substance that his older brother had hidden, and the boy ate it completely by accident. So Halloween was not to blame, and no one had any malicious intent to poison the child. But it was too late. People panicked. And every year there were more and more similar articles about someone being on Halloween, but most of them were false, except for one story that really shook. It surpassed all the others in the level of horror. And yes, there really was a victim in it. Well, I'll start the story in order. In 1974, on October 31, once again in the United States, children celebrate Halloween, walk the streets in costumes to the neighbors, take candy from them. There is an atmosphere of festivity and fun, and everything seems to be going well. But at that time, there lived one typical American family: mother, father, 8-year-old son, and 5-year-old daughter. And there too, there was a holiday atmosphere, a cozy warm house, a delicious evening meal, and then an evening walk with the children and collecting candy. Nothing portended trouble. Closer to night, the family returned home, and the boy, Christopher, began to look at the collected candy. He spent a long time choosing what to eat, but the boy's attention was attracted by one huge stick pipe filled with powdered sugar. At that time in America, it was a popular candy, And so little Christopher opened the candy, tasted it, and felt the bitter taste. He immediately becomes ill, begins to feel sick to his stomach and dizzy, sweats a lot, and runs to his father for help. His father doesn't know what to do because it's the first time he's seen such a thing, and he immediately calls an ambulance. The ambulance does not arrive right away. By then, Christopher becomes very ill, and after a while, the boy. All the residents and neighbors were in shock. It was a crazy tragedy for a small town. And after a while, the autopsy showed that the boy was poisoned with cyanide, a chemical poison that was found in these candies. The perpetrator apparently opened the label, manipulated it, and discreetly packed it all back up. So this is not an accident. Someone did this on purpose, with malicious intent. Imagine the panic in the city when it became known that their children's candy might have been too. People immediately started turning in their candy to the police. Who do you think could have done this? An angry neighbor, a crazed maniac, or a demon from the other side of the world? Then a full-scale investigation was launched to find the culprit. The police began to interview all the neighbors, witnesses, and everyone they could, but got nothing. And in the end, there was only one witness left, and that was David, the boy's father. David was asked, "Where did you get the candy from? Who gave it to you?" Because it was the father of the family who came home with the candy. He replied that on Halloween night, he went to the neighbor's house, knocked on their door, and they gave him 5 pieces of candy from behind the door. And it turned out that David did not see the neighbor's face. The police went to the house, intending to arrest the occupants, but it did not happen. At the moment when the father allegedly received the very 5 candies, there was no one. And this, by the way, was confirmed by other neighbors. So it turns out that the father's testimony was false. You could not just make up this story, which in fact did not happen. And the police, of course, did not like all this. So you want to know who really the boy? It was his own father, David McCormick. Why would a father kill his own child, you ask? What was the point? The police found out that he had huge debts that he couldn't pay off. He needed a lot of money, and secretly from his wife, he took out several life insurance policies on his children, so that in case of anything, he could get a compensation of $30,000 for each child. And just one day after the murder of his son, he called this insurance company and demanded compensation for his son's life. This fact, and the testimony of other witnesses, brought this terrible case to light. He was immediately arrested and charged with premeditated murder. David didn't care about his own son. He was ready to do anything for money, and got the punishment he deserved for it. I think it's obvious to everyone that he was given the most horrible punishment. You know what I mean? The sentence was only carried out after 9 years in prison. And can you imagine what happened to him there? David's final sentence was by injection. News of this instantly spread across America, and huge crowds of people began to gather outside the prison with trick or treat placards. Thus was born the legend of Candyman, which was David's nickname in prison. This is such a creepy story, and what do you think, dear subscribers? Write your opinion in the comments, and I'll be sure to read it. From you, subscribe and like. And from me, another quality piece of content about scary stories.